Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing okay. Thank you. Thank you for watching another episode of Talk2Rami. It's an exciting day today because I'm sitting here with Eric Grafstrom. Yes,
You got it.
Yeah. And he's a, he's a hardcore entrepreneur. Came to Austin, Texas from Silicon Valley, being a startup CEO, advisor, name it. He's been living it as an entrepreneur. And we're going to just chat, see what's going on. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you for your time. I know you're very busy, but you made time for us.
I'm always happy to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Tell me, why did you move to Austin?
It was a personal reason. So I've got a kind of a long entrepreneurial journey that started in Dallas. And I was fortunate to work for what later became Broadcast.com. And, that journey after getting acquired by Yahoo took us to London and eventually the Bay Area. And I left the big company scene and went through a variety of startups. But we had family that had migrated out of the Midwest and moved to Florida. And we had just spent, 2 decades being 11 hours away from aging parents. And we just realized that, family's important. We wanted to be closer. And we were familiar with Texas, and it was a great place for us when we first started out as a young couple and launched my career. And so we decided to move back to Texas and landed here in Austin about 2 years ago.
You just mentioned the Comcast. That was a long time ago.
yeah. Like despite the youthful glow of this here moneymaker,
that
was a while ago.
That was a time, and some even computer they didn't have a soundboard.
No, so my claim to fame is at the time I was dumb enough to join what was then AudioNet. Selling webcasting to people that did not have sound cards and speakers. Probably would have been a great question, honestly, to ask during the interview process, but I was, 20-something years old, and it sounded brilliant. And after you do about 3 months of cold calling and people, tell you that you're crazy and they can't listen to audio over the internet, so yeah, it was
now everybody wants.
Now everybody does it. Now
everybody wants to do audio. They want to do a podcast.
That's right.
And the audio actually is booming. And that webcasting that time, it was something like it's just what are you talking about?
Sure, it was nothing.
Audio and webcasting. How was the experience to just even educating people about that?
Well, it was an experience that I think a lot of people have early in their career, which is. Sometimes you have to do something that isn't all that enjoyable and can be very difficult, but it builds muscle, right? So yeah. I fall back on that, as it was my experience, and I've had many that replicate maybe some of the experience of getting an MBA or a law degree or other experiences. I had a communications degree when I was at AudioNet, making cold calls. It was hard. I mean, you're just, you're banging away making 60, 70 cold calls a day. You're not selling something that people even understand. And so you have to work through how you can explain something in a very condensed time period. And so for me, looking back on it, is I've had the good fortune for my career, it built muscle in terms of, sometimes what it takes. And make no mistake, sales is the oldest profession in the world, and it's the most valuable thing outside of being able to kind of maybe build something that people want or need. Somebody eventually has to sell it.
And just adding to that, now these days it's really changed. The selling that we were doing,
yes,
as you said, many years ago, the whole psychology of that is changing right now. A lot of people, they don't do cold calls anymore.
No,
it's
there's
all
a lot
about
of
the connection that we early talk.
Yeah, you have to learn how to quickly establish a relationship. It could have been just my lack of experience, but the strategy was start at the companies that had A, and work your way through the alphabet. So there wasn't a whole lot of science as to how to move through this, because we didn't know who would buy this at the time, and really had to kind of figure this out on my own. So very fortunate.
You mentioned that, you work with a lot of startups,
yes.
Earlier stages, am I right?
Yes, very early
stages and everything. What is the most challenging things these guys, they go through? I work with some of them, but is it like an MVP? Is it like their mindset? Is it their self-awareness? Is it their psychology? What is that stood up to you that these all people, they go through it when they go to earlier stage of the startup, they're coming to you, they ask for advice, and they said, Eric, Now what?
Well, I see a number of things, but the thing that I find that I feel like I repeat is no one cares if you can build something. You really have to find a way to build a business, not a product. And I think for people who come from a product or an engineering background, it's a natural talent and it's a natural instinct to build something that may solve a problem that they see in the marketplace. But the reality is eventually, if you want to attract investors or if you want to drive revenue or both those things, you have to build a business. And, that means when you start to think about bringing something to market, especially with an MVP, talking to prospective customers is absolutely critical and often gets overlooked because I think it's a combination of things, but one, the natural tendency to fall back into something that you can build. But two is the, urge to maybe have something that's good enough to put in front of a potential customer, when oftentimes it's a conversation like you and I are having here where you can start to get pattern recognition of what the needs are and what's the priority of those needs.
Because I've been working with some startups and, some they come, as you said, from the engineering background and they are so attached or in love with their creation, which is nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Nothing wrong with it.
Agreed.
But what they are lacking is the vision. What they're lacking is that they don't see the horizon as far as building the ecosystem or the business and how they can scale it. Because I always say, if you can't scale it, you don't have a business.
That's right. Yeah.
And the scalability is so important. And sometimes it's hard that they do have a good product, but they don't know how to promote it. They don't know how to define it or get it out there. You had that experience with this startup?
Well, I came from a sales and business development background, and I'm learning even later in life. I became a founder, so I'd been an executive in a number of startups and had served as a C-level executive as well as advisor and consultant. And now I'm going through the steps of trying to build that a product. But I think my approach, not to say, my approach is good, but my approach it tends to be very customer centric. So, as I mentioned before, building something that people will pay for at scale, right? I like the addition there, is absolutely critical, because if you can't drive that revenue eventually, even if you're successful in raising money, eventually it all falls apart.
Yeah. That's actually the key. And I always tell, people that they're going to start something and say, what value are you trying to add?
Yes.
What is the value added here? How are you going to make people's life much easier? With your new company, the ExitGuide,
yes.
That basically the value is, I look at it, I'm going to help you to exit.
That's right.
That's the value. I'm going to help you to have a better life. I want to tell you how to do it by doing certain evaluation and all that stuff.
That's right.
But the most of the startups that I was dealing with them, or sometimes I talk or they come across our office, is they really don't know what they want.
Yes, you've probably heard the phrase "a solution looking for a problem."
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so,
you just said it. Yeah.
yes, you do see a lot of that. And look, they still seem to get funded. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know that I would be a successful picker of ideas that would become billion-dollar companies. But you do sometimes see things that are solutions looking for problems. And when someone's heart is in it, it's hard to give them advice that says you don't really believe in them. And so I think it's important to separate the person from the idea, because we all have things that teach us and help us grow, and sometimes that is working on something that doesn't, quite frankly, that works out. Failure is a tremendous tool and learning option or learning experiences as far as growing as an entrepreneur.
How you define failure?
Well,
I'm sure you failed. I failed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I like to tell a lot of young entrepreneurs when they say that they've made some mistakes. I say, look, whatever mistake or catastrophe you're about to tell me that you've made, I'm going to tell you to hold my beer, right? Like I've made a bigger one, a dumber one, more catastrophic thing, or whether it's been something I've been a part of or experienced or done myself. So we all do it. I'm going to paraphrase, and if someone watches this, hopefully they can look it up and get it correct. But Nelson Mandela had something to the effect of, he never fails. It's always just something that he learns from. And so I think you have to, really take it in. It's hard. Like when you've been kicked in the teeth and something doesn't work out, whether it's a company where you have to close the doors, or it's a launch and it just is a unmitigated dumpster fire. I mean, these things happen, and there's two things that I think are important. One is, yes, picking yourself back up, but I also think it's important to kind of give yourself some time, and it may have to be a few hours, quite frankly, or a day, to let that process through before you get back up. And so for me, yes, I mean, failure is a learning experience, and it's, you're kind of going through this process of things that don't work that will help you understand what potentially will get to the point as to what will work. So I'm not a big motivational speaker guy. I mean, it's not my trade, but I do think you have to look at failure as more of a learning experience as opposed to a negative thing that sets you back.
I totally agree with you. Failure is nothing more than, I think you try something and it didn't work.
That's right.
What are you gonna do? It's not. Right. It's not like it's not a sign of weakness. It's not like sign of like today is the end of the world because it didn't work. And you can see this in the personal life to professional lives. Business, divorces, life, whatever it is. But we all capable to do better things.
That's right.
We all capable of do that. And I had a business, didn't work out, and I had to do this and that is strategy, this is strategy. We'll figure it out.
That's right.
But most of the people that I think it comes from perfectionism, that they want to be, okay, no, it's going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect.
Perfection is the enemy of progress, right? And
I love that.
And that's not my saying. And if you follow a lot of investors and entrepreneurs on Twitter, people talk about, grit and determination is what makes it. And it's not the ability to live through failure, but it's the ability to keep trying until you finally get it right. I mean, Thomas Edison was a famous entrepreneur that was known for trying something. If you read the history of the invention of the light bulb, it wasn't something that he went through and figured out on the 15th time. I mean, he burned through thousands and thousands of different ways to get it to work, and he finally found the one. And so, that's what it takes, I think, to be a successful entrepreneur. In terms of the most important thing is, quite frankly, with ExitGuide, with any other company I've been a part of is an early stage company, having things go really well early on is terrifying. And people think that's such a strange thing, right? But you kind of think, well, we don't know why it went well. I mean, did we just get lucky?
Yeah.
Right? Was it just the timing of something on that particular day? So I think, failure can also, not just be a learning experience, but it also can give you confidence when something is working, why.
That's absolutely right. And I'm sure you heard that Elon Musk story that with the SpaceX, how many times he failed. Or
that's right.
Oh my God. And he had so much money that he was, going to decide which company is going to put it in to make which baby is gonna work, and he did it, and it worked. He always says that if I lose everything, I go bankrupt too. It's name of the game.
Well, and I mean, you got to give the guy credit. I mean, if I fail, it might affect a couple thousand users and people within my network, and there's an ego thing. His would literally blow up in the sky. So if you think you've had a bad day, at least you didn't light something on fire in the sky and have shrapnel coming down from a rocket blowing up over the ocean. So, but I think he with all of his faults, he still personifies what it takes to make something work with sheer willpower.
And you come from the Silicon Valley, for 17 years over there, Silicon Valley. And you've been living and breathing on this entrepreneurship life, and you have seen so many entrepreneurs, all of that stuff. These days, I'm sure you hear that all the time. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. They think it's a really sexy, fancy title. I'm telling you guys, it is not.
Yeah.
It is painful and it's brutal. Been there, he's been there, we all been there. But
sure.
We're not saying it's not possible. It is possible, but what I always say that do not quit your day job. Do your hustle after 7 p.m. to midnight or 1 a.m. Do your side hustle. Start working, then quit your job. No, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to go at it. It's a suicide.
I think you're giving people wise advice, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. I'm from the Midwest, and my mom tends to be a blunt Midwestern person, and I love her to death. And she said many times, well, if people knew what it was like to have kids, they probably wouldn't have them. And this is when I had young, right? And we had young kids at the time, and you're looking at your children. And I'm looking at myself. Well, wait a minute here, but I think it personifies what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Which is, if you knew what it was like to be an entrepreneur, you really wouldn't want to be one. And so it does take a certain breed of mentality. And it's okay to have a corporate job that's 9 to 5 and provides stability. We're not all cut out to do that. I would be a horrible executive at a big company. I wouldn't succeed at it, even if I tried my darndest to make it happen. But with entrepreneurship, when I get asked about it with people who are thinking about it, I tend to focus on some of the challenges, which is, it's lonely.
It's very lonely.
You have to deal with your ego being bruised hour by hour, day by day, because the reality is when you're truly starting something from scratch. Another bit of advice that I tend to give entrepreneurs, and I'm going to apologize in advance because I try to keep it clean, but this is how I say it.
Oh, no, say it like what it is.
But I say, you have to understand that for years, no one's going to give a shit about your shitty little startup. And that's just what it is.
This
because,
is true.
Before, Amazon was Amazon and Google was Google, and there's all this roadkill of people who did not succeed. There's this dark, challenging, lonely period where you're trying to make something work, and the people who come later and tell you that they really always believed in you, it comes later. People want to help, but they don't. So you have to, as an entrepreneur, be prepared for, living for, the 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 success, and that number will go up over time. But it is learning, not just how to be an entrepreneur or the owner of a small business, which all the tech stuff. I mean, as somebody who's now, has a company that works with small Main Street businesses day in and day out. I mean, I have so much respect for someone like yourself who opened a restaurant. I mean, my goodness, how you made that work is amazing.
It was tough.
And I believe so much harder than trying to launch something where you can build a site on WordPress and start to do some A/B testing. Like, you don't get burned. Like, you're not there at 3:00 unclogging a drain. Doing something with a kind of producing a physical product, a meal, and doing that successfully at scale is, quite frankly, it's an astonishing thing. And I wish we would recognize small business owners, and put them on a pedestal as we tend to do with kind of early stage tech entrepreneurs, because they really are people who have truly made something work and deserve a lot of credit for it.
The restaurant really, not because I was in it, but I always say to new entrepreneurs that the people that graduate from the hospitality industry, the restaurant, they got a really tough skin. It's just tough. Been there, done that from 9/11. Lay off people, working. Name it, so many stuff, and the competition. But it's a really, really hard work, and you have to be very dedicated.
Yes.
And then the things that most of the entrepreneurs that they don't understand is the grind and the hustle side of the things. It's not going to be overnight success. It's not going to be you get up in the morning and you said, "Oh, no, I'll have an offer. They're gonna buy me out. It's time to exit."
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
No.
Nobody's gonna come and save you. It's lonely, as you said.
Sure.
But it's got a lot of other benefits, and is a tremendous environment for growth.
Yes.
Like mentally, professionally, it really helps a lot of people out. But the thing is that these days, as you know, most of the entrepreneurs, they're not open to suggestions that like the guy came to me and said, this is not going to work. And the world doesn't revolve around you. You have to understand that. Nobody give a shit. If you want to be successful, this is what you have to do. And they have this mentorship or mentor syndrome right now that, I need to get a mentor. But what is the point if you don't want to listen?
Yeah, and I think you have to find the right fit. There's a lot of accelerators and programs that are out there.
They're out there, yeah.
And the early ones, Y Combinator and Techstars, they're great, and they have a long track record. And I think that by and large, some of them are quite good. I think the challenge for it, in my experience that I share with entrepreneurs, is a couple of things. One is, their program might be a great program, but it might not be the right program for you. And so, by that I mean, to make something work, as a startup, does involve process and things that you can learn from other, but there's also an alchemy to it, right? It's who you're working with. It's your intuition on what customer needs are and anticipating those. And you can't put that into a program. And so whether it's a mentor or whether it's advisors or whether it's accelerators or incubators, it's not just joining one that you think has a great reputation, has got a great process, but it's joining the right one. And quite frankly, it may be the no-name advisor who people have no idea who they are, who could be the most amazing person that could turn your career around and make your startup successful. So you have to select that and keep in mind that kind of alchemy, rely on some of your instinct as to, who you're going to take advice from. It's hard to describe unless you've been through this journey before. But if I look back at some of the people who were really influential in my career, it was just, a combination of serendipity and a lot of different things that brought them into my life at the right time to provide the right level of advice. And it wasn't me seeking necessarily someone out who came from a certain kind of profile background. We didn't have accelerators and incubators back in the day, but
I get asked from a lot of restaurateurs, restaurant sheep, or anybody wants to be a restaurateur. There's a different thing these days that I want to open my restaurant. And, and I have to be brutal. I have to be so honest with them.
Yeah.
Why you want to do that? Oh, I love cooking. I said, that's the worst answer you're going to get. I love cooking. Yeah, my grandma likes cooking too,
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Have you ever worked in that? Have you ever worked in this?
Yes.
Have you ever wait tables or, being a waiter or waitress? Or it's just a lot of moving parts. It's come that.
Rami, I was one of those people. I mean, it's funny you bring this up. I have a passion for food. It's a hobby. I love cooking.
Eat it, right?
Eating, cooking, and I at one point in my career was feeling burnt out on tech, and so I took a week off and I went to a cooking school. And
really,
and at the end of it, I thought, oh my gosh, I would never want to work in a restaurant. Right? It cured me. Like I thought maybe I'll go become a chef. Maybe I'll leave the tech world. And it was just a week. I mean, my goodness, it was just a week. You did it for years and decades. And you're so right, is sometimes, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's, you have to go in and live it. I mean, what I found was, one, I knew this coming. I'm not a late night person. So if you don't want to stay up past 10 o'clock at night, don't go into the restaurant business.
Oh, yeah.
Two, it's demanding physically, emotionally. And the cuts I would come home with and learning how to debone a chicken or dice garlic, at lightning speed so that you can turn things around. And I thought at the end of it, oh my gosh, chefs are amazing people. Sous chefs and people who work in the kitchen are unbelievable. Just they're athletes almost. But it's super hard. And so getting a taste of it really did kind of cure me of this kind of fantasy of what I thought it would be like.
A lot of people that, they ask me, I say, go work in the restaurant. I'll put you in one of our restaurants that I know.
Yes.
Go work for 2-3 days in the back, in the kitchen, in the front.
Yeah.
But it started from the back, and then you get a feel of it, like how these things is going to work. Because, unfortunately, the restaurant business has got a lot of side effects. Like one of the industries that it has the highest divorce rate is a restaurant, and the law enforcement after that. And it's really because, as you said, I was always, missing a family gathering. Oh, I'll be there at 10. And I had to, something came up, I had to leave at midnight. By the time I was going to the place, everybody, all the family, they were gone. And I was missing it. And, vacation, even you have managers, even you have a great restaurant. If it's a chain, it's different. If it gets to the chain system and all that, that's different. But if you want to have a 1, 2, 3 locations, still you're going to be very heavily involved.
Yeah.
And it's very time consuming and it's very risky.
Yes.
It's very risky. The same thing, with entrepreneurship. And I always say, how far would you like to go? How far are you willing to go?
That's right.
It's just, it's all comes back to, I think, anything we do, if you want to summarize it, anything we do, it comes back to self-awareness.
I couldn't agree more. And you can love something but not treat it as your profession. There are probably millions of people who love golf, but really just they don't have it in them to make the level of sacrifice. And sure, there's talent there, no doubt. But someone who loves to cook and loves food, like I didn't have it in me to make the sacrifice to become a chef. had the equivalent of kind of what you recommend for people. It's great advice, right? Go work in a restaurant for 2 to 3 days, see what it's really like. And the idea of being an entrepreneur is different, and it is. It's a profession, right? It's a profession
really
and
a
it's a
profession?
craft, and you have to have a commitment that is much like trying to become a professional athlete or trying to become a chef and loads of other professions, which is, it's just a level of commitment that over time you have to embrace it, right? You have to really embrace it in a way that allows you to weather those really challenging, difficult times. And if you're not ready to do that, then it doesn't matter how much you love the idea of owning your own business or love the problem that you're trying to go solve for customers or running a small business, because all that love and interest will die away when you're doing something you don't want to do, over the weekend, at a late night, when you're sick, whatever it may be, because you don't have an option, right? There is no alternative.
Everybody's saying that, oh, I don't want to work 8 to 5, but trust me, you're an entrepreneur, you're going to work 8 to 8, 8 to 10, 8 to midnight.
Yeah.
Trust me, there is, and sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, maybe you can be a number 2 in the company, number 3, number 4, maybe employee number 10. Maybe you can perform better and much be happier. And at 5 p.m., you're done. You did fabulous job. Everybody loves you. Great employee. Maybe that's the way, some people, they have to think. But, overall, what you and I, after so many years we went through, is still going through, it's just, it's brutal. Sometimes it's really hard. Have you ever had this experience, you, as a person, that you got this close to give up? I've been there. And I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to throw the towel. Every of us, we experience that.
Yeah, well, I think you do. And the other part of this is we're all people. We're all human beings with, partners, family members, wives, husbands, kids, and sometimes, I had 1 or 2 stints where, doing something in the early stage, it wasn't the right thing. I became a founder, right? I'm a long time, startup exec that has been through, 20 plus venture-backed startups in my career. But I didn't become a founder until I was 50. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But I think it gets back to what you mentioned earlier. One is I had been on the inside for so many early stage companies as a chief operating officer, as a CEO, or maybe as an exec. And, I had a pretty good idea of what it was going to take. And, part of it is, being an entrepreneur is a commitment, but it's also a commitment that you may want to decide to make at the right time in your life. And so for me, with where we were as a family and some other things. Now, I wasn't working at, Google or a company with steady. I mean, these were all, companies with less than, fewer than 50 employees. So this was by no means, what I was moving to with stability were funded startups. But I didn't become a founder until later for a variety of reasons, but one of which it just wasn't the right season in life. And so that's something I think it's really important for listeners and viewers to understand is maybe you can become an entrepreneur, but maybe not right now, right? Maybe it is later. Has the time passed? No. If you look at all the data and all the statistics of successful entrepreneurs, largely it's founders who are over the age of 45. And you can look at the research for this, but I think a lot of it has to come with, it is the right time in life, and you're bringing both life and professional experience to the table that helps you kind of deal with the challenges of getting something from idea into implementation.
And, I have seen so many young entrepreneurs they want to be entrepreneurs, they're in 20s. And, I said, do you understand? Or do you even feel that how much time you got?
Yeah.
And they said, no, I'm getting too old. I said, you're 24,
Yeah.
23, 25, for God's sake. You add another 20 years, is you're going to be 45. And you still have time. You still got that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm living proof. Sure.
Yeah. Why you worry about, as you said, just go try it.
Yeah.
Just go try it. Do your best. Fail fast. Get up. Dust yourself. Keep going. And keep doing it.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. You have so much time. But this is what people don't understand. They're all thinking that they're running out of time.
Yeah, and I mean, I have, we all develop our own styles. I have a couple of two really key themes when I'm hiring someone. And one is pretty simple. I would be very hard pressed if not, I would not have an interest in hiring someone from Google or Facebook. And people say, why? Those are great companies. And part of it is I don't know how much of the success they were directly contributing to
The company.
And so I want to find somebody who more so comes in with the cuts, scrapes, and bruises. If somebody wanted to join ExitGuide and they've been a founder that's failed 2 or 3 times, but they still have the determination to join something early stage, that's gold. That's just gold, right? Because they do come in with the cuts, scrapes, and bruises of learning what doesn't work and learning what does work, but also that resiliency. And not to knock working at a company like a Facebook or a Google, I'm not sure that they necessarily bring that to the table, even though they might have a great background from pedigreed school and a big responsibility at a big company. I'm just not sure they've been punched in the mouth. And the other thing that I always look for is just simply is curiosity. Like, what are you, what are the things that you're interested in, whether it's outside of work or whether it's, at work. I want to know the things that drive you, because we're going to deal with a lot of uncertainty in a startup. And you're not going to have answers. And you can tell me you understand that. That's fine. But a curious person will find a solution and a way to get it done. That's what it takes. If you're in a big company, there's a lot of resources. There's certainly a lot of challenges, but they're different challenges. Working in a small, early stage startup, and someone says, "Well, what are we going to go do?" Oftentimes my response is, "I don't know. That's why I hired you." Right now, let's go figure it out together. But if we had all the answers, then we wouldn't be here. We would be successful people with a multi-billion-dollar startup. Our job is actually to kind of figure it out.
Let's talk about the ExitGuide. You guys, you work with the companies that they are already established, like for many years, or how the system works.
So yeah, I'll kind of give you the backstory on how I came to this. So the last few years I was in Silicon Valley for some reason. I developed a skill set and was getting brought in by venture capitalists to generally challenging situations. So these were companies that had raised anywhere from sometimes as 3 or 4 million to as much as $80 million, and something wasn't going well, and so that made me kind of a fixer or a cleanup guy. So I would come into a company that oftentimes a founder CEO had kind of got in over his skis or her skis, and the job was to they would oftentimes let that person go. What is the problem and how bad is it? What are the options? Should we shut this down, or should we
continue,
pivot this thing and come up with a game plan, and then try to implement it and hand it off. I don't have it in my DNA to do that long term, right? There was just some parts of it that just, it's really hard to come in and cut costs and do some other things, and I did it a couple of times. But what it taught me was a lot about the process of getting a company that, either is going well and is on a path to potentially have an exit through an acquisition. In some cases, a company that just needs to make some changes and position themselves so that they're on a better track to potentially be acquired down the road, or in some cases, sell off assets and wind it down. Now, as I mentioned, it just wasn't in me to do that. And I, to be honest with you, Rami, I got tired of cleaning up messes for millionaires, right? I was getting brought in by Sand Hill Road firms. And I got tired of cleaning up messes for millionaires because I was the one back dealing with the shit.
Yeah.
And I was driving down the road. This is in California. A story comes on NPR about small business owners that are baby boomers and struggling as to what to do with their business. And I thought, well, that's weird. And so I dug into it. And what I realized is a couple of things. One is 95% of small businesses in North America are worth less than $2 million. It's like your Italian restaurant that you opened up. And when it comes to saying, okay, I'm ready to move on, I want to sell this business to my business partner or a member of the family, or I'm going to need to find a buyer in my local community, there's just really no good information and resources to help these people, largely because if it's a company, a business worth more than $5 million, like you can make money as an attorney, as a business broker, or whatever it may be. Anything north of that, you can make it. But most businesses are really small. They're a landscape business. They're worth a couple $100,000, and they don't have the financial capital to go invest, $10,000 in having a lawyer help them navigate this process and get it done. Business brokers aren't going to return their phone call because they're too small. They'd rather focus on something that's bigger. What I realized is, I had this experience which I didn't necessarily want to continue to apply in, the tech world, but what could apply into kind of Main Street businesses, as I like to say, real businesses, real people with real businesses. And so we're early, but what I like to say is, in the most simplistic way, if you look at what LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, Zen Business, and others have done for the small business owners, and is they've brought a process of formation and getting out of the gate online, and they've taken the human element out for most of it. In some cases, all of it. When it comes to exiting your business, there's nothing like that. And so, if you own a landscape business in Minneapolis, Minnesota, it doesn't matter if you promote that online on a website that has millions of visitors, because those visitors are all hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. Really what most people are looking for is, what is my business worth? What are the steps I need to take? How do I make sure I'm doing this correctly? And so there's a lot of other things that we can go do to help small business owners, but we're starting with that. So owners come in and they can get started by building a plan on our website. They don't have to talk to a person. They can do a lot of this for free. And so for me, my mission in life, quite frankly, is I want to take this experience that I had in Silicon Valley of learning business processes and building software and learning how to automate things and doing all that. And I want to apply it to really something that is effectively 35% of our GDP.
I totally understand, and I appreciate for what you do for a small business, because I was one of them.
Yeah.
I'm still one of them, but, I think that the small businesses are the backbone of this country.
It's not just that, but it is 30 to 35% of our GDP. So it's not just the backbone that sounds good. What you're talking about, your business here, other business that you've been involved with helping and starting, it is economically a huge part.
It's a huge part.
And when you talk about 35% of the GDP of the largest economy in the world, this is a huge number.
It's a
right?
big number.
And so these small businesses employ well over 50 million people in this country. So it's not just the business owners, but it's the businesses it's the people that they employ, it's the vendors that they buy their products from, it's the customers that rely on them. So this is a massive part of our economy, and I just kind of felt like this part of the sector, so to speak, was just never served properly with technology, and so that's kind of
Have you ever had this experience? I'm sure that with the ExitGuide that you have a business that you see they have a potential. They're not making that much. They're okay, but they got a potential. How you guide those businesses, exit or survive, whatever it is. But
Sure.
Have you ever had that?
Well, we see it all the time. And the hard thing is right now it's early, right? It's myself, a full stack engineer, and a few other contractors. There's an emotional part of this because you're dealing with someone who's really put their heart and soul into something. And oftentimes it is somebody who they love cooking and they started a restaurant, or they started out as a massage therapist and learned that, they could really help people with, varying, chronic illnesses and things. But they may not be the savviest business people. And right now there are so many needs that we can't address, but, one of the services that we do offer as a paid service is coaching. And so a lot of it is centered around exiting. But we find that a fair number of small business owners, either they can't or exit right now, but they're not ready to shut it down, or they're planning ahead, but they need to figure out how to kind of, improve their business to, get a better valuation. And again, there's just so few tools, and simply giving them trying to jam technology and SaaS down their throat, it's not helpful. So we see it a lot. Right now, it's great for me to provide, coaching to some of these. We have other small business coaches that are part of our platform and part of our service. And, we can't keep up with the need for that. So it's certainly something that we want to figure out how to, layer onto our platform, as you mentioned earlier, in a scalable way. But it's a big part of it.
And that, I think what you're saying, the education or educating this hardworking people is a big part.
Oh, it absolutely is. We
That they don't know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know, and they don't necessarily know what questions to ask. So, we have, close to 100 different articles on our site, which for a small company, early stage company, and my desire to continue to kind of put out more free content and free resources, and I believe that we should be doing this without an agenda, right? Our agenda should not be, read this and we'll sell your business for you. Our agenda should be, let's educate you so you can make a good decision that's right for you professionally.
Maybe you want to still stay in the business.
That's right. And so you need to know your options, right?
Yeah.
So here's an explanation of what it means to sell to a family member, what it means to sell to an employee, or how you can improve your valuation to sell down the road. So, I think that's the biggest need that when I got into this, that's what I felt like. People were not looking for a buyer for their business. Most of them were looking for information as to where to start and what to do.
And how to save themselves or take it to the next level.
That's right.
Because if somebody wants to exit and they know they have a good business and the product or service or making money, it should not be that difficult to exit, I believe. I don't know.
Look, if you have a business worth buying, someone will eventually buy it.
Yeah.
Now, knowing how to get the right deal and the steps to take so that you have confidence entering into that process is part of what we, that's part of what we offer, which is educating, an owner. So it says, look, you may have a couple of people interested in buying, but for a lot of small business owners, that's terrifying, because someone comes in and asks questions about their business and it's information they've never really had to share with anyone, maybe other than maybe their CPA. And so they want to understand, okay, am I doing the right things to get the right deal? And am I moving through this in a way that I can move through this exit process cleanly? So, it does get back to educating, owners, whether they have a business that may struggle to sell or, be very, attract a lot of potential buyers. They still need to understand, okay, what do I need to know? Because I've been running this for 5 to 20 years. What do I need to know so that I can enter into this process?
I used to work with a bank, and my job was to review their loan applications for restaurants.
Oh, okay.
Oh my
God.
And
okay. Yeah.
As an independent, advisor, consultant, I had to go, and look at it and ask them question: are these guys gonna make it or not? That was tough. And believe it or not, as you said, most of them they didn't know how to calculate the food costs or labor costs or what is your menu, how you structure your menu, how you're going to do it. And, when you're asking for $500,000 or $400,000, of course the bank is going to take a big risk because
that's right.
You're not educated.
That's right.
You're not educated. I think the same thing that you guys are doing is just educating these people what you should know.
It is. And you learn the restaurant business from someone in the restaurant business.
Absolutely.
And to your earlier point, early stage entrepreneurs can learn a lot from, more seasoned entrepreneurs. Now some of that is irreplaceable. You don't necessarily want to get that, do away. Technology is not going to, do away with that type of one-to-one or one-to-few interaction. But, when it comes to this process, banks don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
Law firms don't do it. Now, should they? I don't know, right? It's not being done today. And so running a small business is different than being a great florist or being a great cook or being a great plumber. Those are crafts and those are skills, but is not necessarily the same thing to running a business. So, our job is to kind of help them, understand that process. And it feels good. I mean, as somebody who spent my entire career and decades in early stage technology companies, a lot of it was rewarding and I learned a ton, but there were points where I felt like we are a solution looking for a problem and, we've been given money and this just seems like a nonsense world. And it's a nonsense world that I came from and put my kids through college and put a roof over our heads, and there were some real solutions out there that help people. But what I love about what I do every day is when I do end a coaching session with a small business owner and, they've paid, but at the end they give a very genuine, heartfelt thank you.
You as an entrepreneur, do you have any regrets?
No, at this point, I don't, and I'm not sure what else I would go do, to be honest with you. So, I think that there's a, what
that's a good thing. If you don't have it, that's amazing.
Yeah, and what you hope for in life is that you find something that you enjoy doing. This whole nonsense of go find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I love being an entrepreneur. And there's days that I hate it. There's days I wish I was working at a big company and punched out at 5:15 and got in my car and drove home and,
I'm with you,
W-2
man.
at the end of the year, and I didn't have to worry about all this other stuff. But in the big picture, no, despite all the days that are rough and some of the things we talked about earlier, I still love what I do, and I don't know that I can never not do it.
What makes you to get up in the morning then? What your juice about? Like when you get up in the morning, saying, this is it,
Yeah.
because that's the really is motivation behind all of us. Like as you said, sometimes I'm so down, and I admit to it, and some days I got to drag myself, and some days I just gonna push.
Sure.
It happens, but something that happening in us, like the people like us, that makes us keep on going.
Yeah. Why jump out of airplanes, run into burning buildings, right? Well, I think there's two things to that. One is, it's okay to have those days and recognize that and, figure out what you need to do. For me, I've had to become very intentional about, coming to Austin, but finding other founders to talk to.
That was a big risk.
And so some of that is just so important. And, I don't come away from the meeting with anything other than just feeling more uplifted and hopeful by maybe commiserating with another founder who, we can exchange ideas, but at least I feel heard. So I think that's part of it. But I think there's really kind of two big buckets. One is, you can enjoy growing and optimizing, or you can enjoy building and growing. And, I said this to someone just the other day. I've said this probably 1,000 times. I would be a horrible McDonald's franchisee. Like I would screw it up. It'd be the one guy that screwed it up, right? They'd come back and be like, all you had to do is follow the plan, man. And I'd be like, yeah, but have you tried the chicken tikka masala fries that we're now offering? And right? like, no, you went off plan, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for entrepreneurs, it's that joy of taking something from an idea, and the failure is just this kind of, but I'm figuring it out. I'm learning, and eventually it's going to work. And then when it does work, right? Whether it's a new feature that you release, or it's a conversion that starts to bounce up and surpass your goals. Like it's a high. It's a high that you get. And I think if you're running a small business, it's that someone who's leaving that 5-star review on Google or comes to you at the end of the night.
Those are little
you're
victories,
dog
yeah.
tired. You've got cuts. Everything's gone wrong, and they look at you and say, "Rami, that was the best damn meal I've had in years." Like it's. That for some people is well, it was really nice of them, and I think that's the thing that fills the tank every day. And it maybe it's not every day, but when it fills the tank, it takes you a long time.
Yeah, everybody asking me why you do this talk show, why you do these Talk2Rami things, because I always say that we all have a story to share. You have a story. Like today, you share so many stuff that is so valuable and priceless for the people to listen and watch and learn, because it's out there.
Yeah.
And our job is as like older school entrepreneurs to just, hey, listen to this. I've been down the road. I did this, and this is not going to work. This is going to work, and just use it. I think that our job is to just help this young generation.
I agree.
To just make it, because nothing is better than giving.
I couldn't agree more. And I think when I spend time with someone and pass on what I know, I said, look, I don't know. I'm just another person with experience that is happy to help. One, I enjoy doing it. It makes me feel great, right? I mean, it's human nature to enjoy giving and seeing other people thrive based on something that you can do, whether it's your time or resources or something else. But also I'm very intentional about this, and I would recommend with other young entrepreneurs is what I say is, look, in 10 or 15 years, you get to do the same thing. You get to go spend that hour in a coffee shop, or you get to go, back to your desk when you've got 1,000 things that you should be doing and send that email introduction to somebody. And it may seem like it's just so trivial for you because now you've got to this point where in your career where your small gesture or 5 minutes of time can make a massive difference. I just did it this morning for a young kid that I met the other night, at a meetup, and he's trying to break into marketing for residential real estate. Well, there's 2 residential real estate women that I know through my Chamber of Commerce. And, I met him the next day. I kind of felt like, well, okay, like big guy upstairs is telling me to go do this. And I said, I met this kid. Like he wants to, would you be willing to have time with him? Spend some time with him. They're like, oh my gosh, I think you could help us. So, this morning I got up, popped him an email. I'm like, it's so funny that we met Tuesday night. I just met 2 successful real estate agents here.
And a lot of people don't understand, as you said, that, I tell this is really to young entrepreneurs or the people in general, that everything happens in your life, there is a reason.
Yes.
I always say there is a reason that Eric is sitting here and talking to me.
Yeah.
I can't explain it, believe it or not. I don't know what it is, but I know that the guy up there, he works his mysterious way, he does everything is. And this is what I'm going to tell everybody. If you can give with no expectation and help other people, this is how you live your life. Because legacy is now. Trust me. Legacy is now. That's what I'm here. That's what I do this. That's what I help other people. I bring smart, talented, admire people like you here that they can add value to this community.
I love doing it. And one of the last things I want to say is not only do I agree with that, but I can't remember where I picked this up, but it's a funny saying, and it truly has become kind of a way of living my life. And I believe it's a Yiddish proverb, which is, if you want to make God laugh, just tell him your plans. And so, if you go into these things with an open mind and open heart and no expectations, and you are willing to give, whether it's to others or give your time to trying to make something successful as an entrepreneur, it may not go the way that you had it planned out in your mind, but eventually something will work out. And so you just have to make sure that you've got the open eyes, open mind, open heart to it, and give back to others, because that may be why you're here. It may be why I'm here today. It may be why I ran into this, young real estate guy at an event, and then had coffee that had been scheduled 2 weeks prior on my calendar the next day with 2 real estate agents. I don't know. I'm not going to try to explain it, but I am going to go do it.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Where my listeners or viewers, they can find you. If they have question, they're going to reach out to you. What is the best way to reach out to you? Is it LinkedIn? What is it?
Yeah, it's a variety of ways. So one would be, you can go to ExitGuide.com. The other is my site is ericgrafstrom.com. So it's Eric with a C, and it's Grafstrom, kind of like Nordstrom, as I mentioned to you earlier.
Grafstrom.
So
I got it.
And Strom. And then on LinkedIn. But I'm open. I'm not somebody who tries to hide, and if I can't help, I'll let you know. I don't know anything about that. I can't. I'd love to help you, but I can't. But what I like to think is, I may not be able to help you, but hopefully I know someone who can.
Do you have any advice in short, for entrepreneurs? Anything that you want to say, guys, do this?
Well, I would say, look, remember, it's one thing to love it, but it's a different thing to make it your profession. And so,
love that.
I love cooking. I'm not going to work in a restaurant or become a chef, but I love building things, and so I'm willing to build different businesses and make the sacrifice that it is for myself. And look, keep in mind, being an entrepreneur is not just your own personal decision, depending on where you are in life. It's a decision that's going to affect partners, spouses, children, people that you're friends with. So it is a huge commitment. So go in with open eyes, and remember, you're building a business, right? Not cooking food, not building a product. Your job is to build a business. And so if you can kind of keep that in mind, then stick to it.
Well said. Eric, thank you so much for
Great
being
to be
here.
here. It was so fun talking to you.
Really appreciate it, and I enjoyed it, and I look forward to talking to you, in different settings, and, just kind of learn from you, and, maybe we can do some great things together.
That would be great.
You never know.
You never know. You want to make God laugh, just tell me plans, right? So
Thank you. Thank you,
right.
my friend. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.